Hi crafters, this is Raquel once again with Paints and Glitter. Here I'm sharing the second video in my series using the Tonic Studios Memories to Cherish dies from Tonic Studios. I am creating here what will be the first page, and this mini album, once completed, will measure 5.5 by 6 3/4, and I'm using the smaller dies, as you can see, that will also have a tab on the left hand side here because it doesn't cut on that one side. Perfect for adding pages because you can then fold the paper and give yourself a 1/4 inch piece to adhere to the base of the book. Here you can see a smaller piece that I'll also be using, and that's precisely what I did. I just cut it down to size, and that way I can have my folded portion to adhere to the base of the book. There I was adding glue and then measuring it out and applying pressure. This will allow me to create a double hinged page. I do add magnets to most of my pages if I have a mechanism that will open or close, and I will cover that up with a decorative piece of paper. I don't like to show the magnets in the books, but it's a great way to hide them and still have a useful page. And I did double mat this. As I said before, I will be leaving the description of any papers and products used in the description bar of the video. This die set is not currently available, but if it does come back to market, I'll be happy to link it as well. Here, this die set does have these very small, tiny little details that you can add. It just so happens to be a little heart shaped here element that you can use. What I've done is I'm going to use it as a tab, just so that the recipient knows that they can open that flap. And on the back I doubled it up with the matching tab, but you could certainly just use a plain piece of paper if you didn't have something like that. I'm also going to be double matting the interior portion of this a little later on, but here I will be covering the back of the page first, just holding the paper there, and that'll help me line it up. So it's kind of a little cheater method to make sure that your papers line up perfectly, and there you have it. Now I can go ahead and double mat this. If you haven't yet watched the first part of this video series, I do invite you to do so. I do have a playlist of tutorials using Tonic Studios dies to make mini albums or cards, so I do welcome you to watch those if you haven't. If you're new to my channel, I also would ask you to subscribe, hit the subscription and the notification button so that you don't miss the videos. And here, this is another die set from Tonic Studios, and what it does is it does cut a border, as you can see there, that you can snip away then from the base of the paper. And of course you can use it to create a card, but in this instance I am going to use it to add an element to the front cover of the mini album, which is going to help me add additional frames. So here you can see I've cut that piece of paper down, and what I'm actually doing is creating a belly band. Now I cut away the excess there, the portions that I didn't need, and that was super easy. And this green portion will be the belly band, but I did use the coordinating dies that will cut out that beautiful element onto that white cardstock that I was initially cutting. So this is a great way to add a decorative element to a book that will also hold the templates that you might be sharing with the recipient so that they can add additional photos. So there you can see I just adhered the center portion of that, and now you will see that once that is applied to the page, I can add the photo frames and they fit perfectly. They just slide right in there. Super easy. On this next page, I'm just going to be adding a base frame as a foundation of where the recipient can add the photo, and then I'm using photo corners from a different die set These were actually from a Tonic Craft kit of the month, and I believe it was number 15. But of course you can use any elements from any collection that you may have, and I will be doubling these up. So it is 110-pound cardstock. I highly recommend that anything that you add to a mini album that might get a lot of use, or that is meant to be something sturdy, that you double up the papers. I don't always show that in my videos, but it is the norm of how I create my mini albums. I very seldom add only one piece of paper. I tend to cut several pieces and then I just double them up as I need to. Moving along here, I have another piece of paper that measures 5.5 by 5 inches, and I'm also using from the Loaded Pocket Frames die set that Tonic Studios released. I went ahead and cut out one of the circles there, and what I did first was that I adhered the pink paper to the base of the cardstock there, that, as I mentioned, measures 5.5 by 5. And I scored it at a 1/4 inch on the 5.5 inch side on both sides there, and you're seeing me fold that paper. That's going to allow me to have a hinge. On the back of that, I'm going to adhere some acetate. This is a very easy way to add a window or a pocket to a scrapbook page, and I'm using double-sided adhesive. This is nice strong adhesive that's going to allow me to add that acetate to the paper, and I add that on all 4 sides. You may have noticed that I did take away a plastic cover that comes on acetate, so you do have to remove that so that you get that nice shiny finish, and you're going to see me do that again. And here I'm just going to apply pressure to make sure that that adheres nicely. And now I will use my little pokey tool, as we call it, to remove that acetate cover. Now I'll flip that over, and here I'm just going to remove that little portion because I don't really need it for this page. That was meant to create an embroidery hoop. So here I'm just applying some adhesive, and this is just going to create a pretty little frame. And on the corners, I'm just removing about a 45-degree angle just to create a nice fold with less bulk. And on here, I'm using yet another mini album die set to create what will be almost like a hinge door. This is from another collection that Tonic Studios released, and I can't recall the name at the moment, but I will link it below if it's still available. And I'm using another pretty paper from the same collection. And for the interior portion, I've removed a tiny sliver, so that way it fits and it's doubled up, and it also hides the hinge. There will be a tiny magnet inside of this as well, so that way I can close this and still make use of that. So there's the magnet that I'm adding. These are very, very small, but they're still effective, and they don't create a lot of bulk. I've also added a small piece of tape to make sure that it doesn't move around, and now I can adhere that, and it's nicely doubled up. Here, this is going to be the second portion of this page. What I've done is that I've used the decorative die to cut into this piece of 110-pound cardstock, and I'm also using Copic markers to color it in. It has these beautiful floral motifs, and I love to add elements like this into the mini albums that I create. The base page will be in that gray that you see there. It also has the second magnet already adhered onto it, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply the color where I see fit. I'm using two different colors of pink. One of them is a little more on the peach side. The other one's a very, very light pink. And you saw me apply the green. Now I'm going over the petal portions of these flowers with a glimmer pen from Tonic Studios. It doesn't have any color in and of itself, it just adds a beautiful shine. And I will remove the portions of this dye that I no longer need now that I'm happy with the coloring. And I will keep the petals of the flowers. If I lose one or two, I try not to make too big a deal about that. But I do try to maintain as many of them as possible, and that's why it's good to work on top of a second piece of paper when you're doing this technique. So that way you can find your little petals if you lose one or two, and then go ahead and add them back in, which is what I did here, only you won't see it in the video. But if I find a little petal that I may have dropped, then I just go ahead and add it back in at the end. Here you can see that beautiful contrast, and I'm also removing little pieces that I no longer need. And now I will be adding that as the second portion of this page, as I mentioned before. And I may have omitted the portion of this video in which I cover the back of that gray piece of paper, but this is essentially going to be a hinged page here with that little pocket element, and it allows for me to just add a decorative element to the page that will look elegant and at the same time have almost like a little hidden place to place a picture. Sometimes in mini albums we like the picture that we're adding, but we don't necessarily want other people to see it right away. But it can just be fun to kind of discover a new photo, or maybe a little note that we want to save of someone's handwriting. This is a perfect place for that. As you can see, I've only added adhesive on 3 sides, and this will be a perfect pocket so that the recipient can add a picture as a top loading picture. And there you see it. Super cute. I invite you to watch the rest of my videos. I hope you've enjoyed this. Be inspired and be blessed. Thanks for watching.